Welcome to the Math Record. Today we'll be covering the ICTM Regional 2016 Division A Algebra 1. Okay, number 1. So let x is equal to -5 and y equals to -3. Determine the value of 2x to the power 3 minus 5x to the power 5 minus 5y to the power 2. So we could just substitute it in. So -3 to the power, -5, sorry, to the power of 3 minus 5 times -3 to the power of 2. So that's -125 times 2 is -250. Minus 9 times 5 is 45. So that's -295. So our answer for number 1 is -295. Okay, number 2. Let x, y be integers such that 17 is less than x is less than 20, and y is between 7 and 9. Determine the smallest possible value of the product xy. Since x and y are going to be both be positive, the smallest product has to be the lowest numbers multiplied together. So the lowest x is 18, and the lowest y is 8. So 18 times 8, multiply, 64, that's 144, right? So the answer for number 2 is 144. 144. Okay, now on to number 3. There are 30 students on a bus. 24 either play in band or sing in chorus. Okay, so this seems like a Venn diagram question, so let's make a Venn diagram. So band or chorus. Okay, so there's 30 students on a bus. 24 play either in band or in chorus, right? So there's 24 in both of these combined, right? That means there's 6 students outside because 30 minus 24 is 6. 6 play in the band but do not sing in the chorus. So 6 are in the band but not in the chorus. 14 sing in the band and sing in the chorus and play in the band. So there's 14 inside here. And so whatever's left, all these numbers have to add to 30. So 30. So 14 plus 6 is 20. 20 plus 6 is 26. So 30 minus 26 is 4. So there's 4 here. So determine the probability that a student sings in chorus but not play in band. So that's 4 out of the total, which is 30. And that simplifies to 2 out of 15. And that's your answer for number 3. Okay, let's move on to number 4. Determine the sum of the smallest and largest solutions for the inequality 2x minus 5. The absolute value of 2x minus 5 is less than or equal to 11. So absolute value of 2x minus 5 is less than or equal to 11. So if 2x minus 5 is positive, we just say 2x minus 5 is less than or equal to 11. But if 2x minus 5 is negative, we got to multiply by -1. So it'll be negative 2x. -1 times 5 is plus 5 is less than or equal to 11. So then 2x is less than or equal to 16, and x is less than or equal to 8. In this case, we have -2x is less than or equal to 6, and x has to be greater than or equal to -3, right? So the smallest is -3, and the largest is 8, so -3 plus 8, that is 5. So our answer for number 4 is 5. Number 5, the rational expression 3 minus 2 over 1 minus x divided by 3 minus over x minus 1 is equal to kx plus w over p plus qx. Okay, where all these are integers and k is positive, so determine the sum of those coefficients. So we have to combine, let's work on the numerator first. So to make the numerator have the same denominator, we're going to multiply it by 1 minus x over 1 minus x, right? Minus 2 over 1 minus x. So that should simplify to 3 minus 3x minus that 2 over 1 minus x. Okay, and that should simplify to negative 3x minus, actually plus 1 over 1 minus x. Okay, now let's work on the denominator. So 3 over x minus 1 minus 1. So it will be 1 times x minus 1 over x minus 1 is equal to 3 minus x plus 1. over x minus 1, which then simplifies to 4 minus x over x minus 1. Okay, so we have those two, delete, and we don't need this part, and we just need these two. Okay, so we have the numerator and denominator. So this equation is divided by the other, which is the same thing as saying this equation is multiplied by the reciprocal. So x minus 1 over 4 minus x. Okay, so if you multiply this by negative 1, that will be negative x plus 1. And then if you multiply the top by negative 1, you gotta multiply the bottom by negative 1, right? So multiply by negative 1, which this is written as the same as 1 minus x over, and then you can multiply this negative, so this would be x minus 4, right? So let's substitute that in. Okay, so we have this instead. So that means we could cross out the bottom, right? Because they're the same. So the top will be negative 3x plus 1 over x minus 4, right? And they said they wanted k to be positive. So we had to multiply the top and bottom by negative 1, which makes 3x minus 1 over 4 minus x, right? So what's k plus w plus p plus q? So we have to add the coefficients. So 3 plus negative 1 plus 4 plus negative 1, right? So that's negative 2, that's 1, plus that 4 is a 5. So the answer for number 5 is 5. Okay. Number 6. The product of two positive numbers is 768. So x times y. X and y are two integers. I mean, two numbers is 768. And their sum is 7 times, so their sum is 7 times their positive difference. So x minus y. Okay. So that basically distributes out. X plus y is equal to 7x minus 7y. That means 6x is equal to 8y. That means 4y is equal to 3x. Okay, so I'm just simplifying. Delete all this part, and we can move this up. Right, so we have these two equations. So what we could do is we could just substitute y in here. So x times y is just equal to 3x divided by 4. So 3x divided by 4 is equal to 768. So that means 3/4 x squared is equal to 768. And you could just use your calculator to find out what that value is. So we have 768. Oops, 768 times 4 divided by 3. Then take the square root of that, which is 32. So it cannot be negative 32 because it's a number 6 that is two positive integers. So x has to be positive. So x is 32. If x is 32, that means y is equal to, you can plug this back into this equation. So 768 divided by 32 is equal to 24. So the bigger of these two numbers is 32. So your answer for number 6 is 32. Basically just that simple. So far, these questions aren't that difficult. Some of them are rewriting and just Venn diagrams and plugging in. Okay, number 7. Start with a number that is an improper fraction. So start with a number, a or b. Okay, multiply by 2. So we multiply this by 2. And then add 16 to your result. So we add 16 to this. And then divide the result by 2. So we divide all this by 2. So that simplifies to a over b. And 16 divided by 2 is plus 8, right? So from that result, subtract the improper fraction. So minus a over b. So this cancels, which is cancel. So we just have an 8. So from the result, subtract the improper fraction you started with. Determine the final answer. So the final answer is 8. So your final answer, whatever improper fraction you always start, you could use like improper, let's say like 1/3 or 1/5 or etc. You will still get 8 as your result. So your answer for number 7 is 8. Okay. Number 8. 6 monkeys all eating at the same rate can eat 8 bananas in 4 minutes. So the rate is 8 bananas by 6 monkeys in 4 minutes. So multiply by 4 minutes. Okay. So 8 bananas per 6 monkeys per minute. So bananas per monkeys per minute, right, is equal to, uh, so we had to, how many bananas we have? We have 12 bananas over, we have 8 monkeys, and we don't know what, how many minutes, so we have to find that. So we need to find our time, right? So setting up as this equation, we know that 12 times, so cross multiply, so 12 times 6 times 4 is equal to 8 times this 8 times that t. So that means our t is equal to, using our calculator, 12 times 6 times 4 divided by 8 is equal to 9 over 2, right? So that would be like about 4.5 minutes. So you can write 4.5 or 9 over 2. Doesn't really matter. Okay. Number 9. The total cost of prom this year was $17,850. The cost was to be shared equally by those who attend. Regrettably, sorry about that, at the last minute, 10 people could not attend, raising the cost for each person by $4.25. So determine the number of students who actually attended the prom. Okay. So the original amount of people we could just say is n, and let's say the initial cost was c. Okay. So uh, n times c will equal to 17,500, right? So this amount of people, and this is the cost per person, right? So that means that multiplies out to the total cost. So based on this situation, on this question, they said that at the last minute, 10 people could not attend. So n minus 10, right? There's 10 less people. But that raised the cost by $4.25. So cost plus $4.25. And now the total cost stays the same. So 17,850. So determine the number of people who actually attended. So we need to determine n minus 10. Okay. So let's distribute this out. So n times c is nc. And then that's plus 4.25n minus 10c minus 42.5 is equal to 17,850. We know what NC is on top here. So 17,850 plus that 4.25 N plus, oh, sorry, that's a minus 10C minus 42 equals 17,850, right? So we have two 850s, 17,850s here, so we'll cancel each other out. That means our 4.2, okay, our 4.25n minus 10c is equal to 42.5. Okay, so we know this is true. Okay, so let's delete all this work because we don't need it. Okay, and let's move this up. So we have this. So what we could do is, let's make these all into like actually integers. So let's multiply by 100 from both sides. So that's 425n minus 1000c equals 425. I mean, multiply by 100 on both sides, right? So there is 42850, right? And it looks like everything could be divided by 5, or 425 divided by 5 is equal to 85. N minus 200C is equal to 425 divided by 5 is 850. So this is 850. Okay, it still could be divided by 5. So 85 divided by 5 is 17. So this is 17N minus 40C is equal to 170. Okay, so we know that is true. Delete all of this and move this up. So now we have everything as an integer. You don't have to do that. I'm just a nitpicker on that. So what we need to do now is we can substitute this equation into this, right? So let's say let's substitute like c, right? Because we want to find n. So 17n minus 170 divided by 40 is equal to c. So n times c, so n times this number is equal to 17,850. Okay, so we only need all this now. So 17 n times n is just n squared minus 170n. And then 40 times that number subtracted. So 40 times 17,850. That's equal to 0. Okay, so let's see if that could be divisible. Is that divisible by 17? And it is. Okay, so we could divide all this by 17, so that's n squared minus 10n minus 1050 times 40. That's 42000 is equal to 0, right? So you could use the quadratic formula or you could graph this and find out what the answer is. So you could just use your calculator. So let's just have n minus 5 squared. So that's plus 25. So 42000 plus 25. So it's minus 42025 is equal to 0. So square root of that number, and then minus 5 is 200. So n is 200. Okay. So determine the amount of people who actually attended the prom. So the number was 200. Okay. Oh, sorry. Oops. Square root of this is 205 plus that 5 will equal to 210. Okay. So that was the amount of people that originally was supposed to attend. So the originally is supposed to attend was 210. But then 10 people could not make it, right, in this question that they told us. 10 people could not make it. So that means 210 minus 10 is 200. Okay. So the answer is 200 still. I just meant something else. Okay. Okay, number 10. A palindrome number is a positive integer that reads the same backwards and forwards, such that 64,746 is 1, right? Because if you read it from the right or the left, it's still the same number. So Craig is challenged to produce the largest possible palindrome, and such that the requirements that no digit 0, at least four different digits are used, and the sum of all the digits in the number is 25. So he is able to make a that palindrome. So what's the first five digits of that palindrome? Okay, so we need to make the largest palindrome using at least four different digits. There's no zeros, and the sum is 25. Okay, so since we know that that the sum is 25, because let's give an example, right? So let's say there's even amount of digits. So if there was even amount of digits, like let's say 2 2 1 1, right? 1 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 1 plus 1, that is equal to 8, right? So just even amount of digits, that's an even number. Okay. So let's say 2 5 3 3 5 2, right? That's 5, that's 10, that's 20. That's even number, right? So when we have even amount of digits making a palindrome, right? Since it's reading the same back and forwards, that means if this is total on this side is t, that means the total of this side is t, that means 2 times t. And whatever t is going to be an odd or even sum, then 2t will make it even all the time. That means since our sum is 25, that tells us there must be an odd amount of digits. So what that tells us that there must be a number in the middle that must be odd. And then there's a bunch of numbers on the ends, right? So there are a bunch of numbers here and a bunch of numbers here. Okay, So what is the smallest possible odd number that we could put in here? So we could like have a bunch of numbers over here, right? Because if we put a really big number over here, like let's say we put in 9, right? That means the sum is 16. That means the sum over here is 8 and the sum over here is 8, right? So we can't put we lower the amount. Instead, if we put something like 1, right? 25 minus 1 is 24. 24 divided by 2 is 12, right? So there's 12. That means we can have more combinations on the side, so we can make it longer. Okay? So, but we can't use 1, right? Because they say at least 4 different digits are used. So the smallest numbers we could use is 1. So we want a bunch of ones, right, on either side. So we can't use 1 here. So we need to put the biggest number that we have in here. So instead of using a 1, let's put like a 3, which is the next biggest. So if we have a 3 in the middle, that's 25 minus 3. That's 22. 22 divided by 2 is 11, right? So there's 3 here, and there's 11 on either side as the sum. Okay, so we already have 1, 2, 3s, and 4. Those are the smallest numbers that we could use, right? So the biggest we could put is 4 on each end. We already have a 3 used, so let's put a 2 here. So we have already had 6. The sum is 11, right? So 11 minus 6 is 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So there's 4 different numbers used. None of the digits are 0, and the sum of all these digits add together is 25. So your biggest number is 4, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 3, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 4. It's adding your commas, right? So that's our largest digit. So what's the sum of the first 5? That is 4 plus 2 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1. So that's 3, that's 7, that's 9. So our answer for number 10 is 9. Okay. Number 11. Determine the sum of all positive values of k such that x squared plus kx plus 24 can be factored into two binomial coefficients with integer coefficients. Okay, so since k is positive, that means the factors of this side has to be positive, right? Because let's say we have x minus a and then x minus b, right? If okay, so actually that's a bad example. X plus a, x plus b. Okay, right? So if a is so a x times x, that's x squared. That's a plus b times x, and then plus ab, right? So that's one way to plus AB. So another way is x minus a. So if sorry, actually we don't need this. So if a and b are both negatives, right? That would still make it positive. But if you add both of these together on this coefficient, it's gonna become negative. So since k is positive, right? Positive value of k. So k is positive. That means both a and b has to be positive. So based on that, what we could do is find the factors of 24, which is just in pairs. So 1 divided by 24 is 24, 2 divided by 24 is 12, 3 divided by 24 is 8, 4 divided by 24 is 6. Okay, so these are the only possible ones. So the sum of both of them is 25. Sum of this is 14. The sum of these two is 11. The sum of these two is 10. Okay. So all these four values are all the possible positive values of k. So adding them all together, 4 plus 5 plus 4 plus 1, that's 0. That's 10, right? So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6. So our total is 60. So 11 is just 60. Okay. Number 12. Let k be the largest integer which leaves the same remainder when each of the three numbers 163, 305, and 512 are divided by k. Determine the value of k. So the trick to solve this question is that you're gonna have to subtract. You have to find the positive difference between each two numbers. So it's gonna be the 305 minus 163, the 518 minus the 305, and the 515 minus 163, right? So those are the three positives. So subtracting that, you could just use your calculator. So this one's 142, and then subtracting what this is 213, and subtracting this one, we get a 35, 355. Okay. So what we're gonna do now is that we're gonna find the prime factorization. So this is just the same thing as 2 times 71. And then 213 is 3 times 71. And 355 is 5 times 71. So whatever factors they have in the same, that's the largest integer which has the same that which leaves the same remainder. So the answer is 71 because that's the largest one. So k is 71. It's basically that's generally the trick of how to do it. Okay. Number 13. Determine all real values x such that 3x squared minus 2x to the power of 6x is equal to 1. Okay. So 3x squared minus 2, oops, sorry, minus 2x to the power of 6x is equal to 1. So the only way to get 1 with the power is basically have 1 raised to a power. It could be any power, so it doesn't matter. Or you have negative 1 raised to an even power, right? So to do this, that means we just need to test when 3, okay, when 3x squared minus 2x is equal to 1, or when 3x squared minus 2x is equal to negative 1, right? So let's move this, oops, over here. Now move this one this side. So then we could do each individual case by itself. So when it's equal to 1, 3x squared minus 2x minus 1 is equal to 0. So distributing that, I mean not distributing, combining them together. So finding the terms. We have 3, oops, sorry. We have 3x, and then this is x. So we have a negative 2 here, so this is the negative 1, this is the plus 1, and that's equal to 0. So x is equal to negative 1/3, and x is equal to 1. Okay? So on this side, we have 3x squared minus 2x plus 1 is equal to 0. This cannot be factored, but you can use the quadratic formula, which is negative b plus or minus b squared, which is 4, minus 4 times a times c. That's 4 minus 12, which is negative 8. So we know this case is not possible because you can't have an imaginary x, right? So you can't have something that does not exist. Okay. So based on this, what we could do is that we could just plug this back into our equation such that so we know that it makes sense, right? So we have negative 1/3, plug it into here. That should equal to negative 1 because we solved it right here, but we could check it. So that's negative 1/9, that's negative 1/3. And then that's plus, oops, sorry. That's actually negative 1/3 plus minus 30 plus 1. Okay, yeah, negative 1/3. So putting that in there, that's negative 1/9, that's negative 1/3. And then negative 2 times, actually, no, that's positive 1/3. And then we have negative 1/3 times negative 2, that's plus 2/3. So that's 1. Okay, so we know for sure that's 1. So 1 raised to a power of 6 times negative 1/3 is negative 2, which is the same thing as 1. Okay, so we know this one makes sense. Now we plug in 1 here, that's 3 minus 2, that's 1. 1 to raise to a power of 6, right? Because 6 times x, so x is 1, so that's 6. So 1 to the power of 6 is 1. So we know this makes sense. So the answer for number 13 is negative 1/3 and 1. Okay. Usually that's how I write my answer. I just put negative 1/3 comma 1. Right? Okay. Number 14. Points point A, negative 3, 8, and point B, 5, 2 lie in the plane. Point C lie in quadrant 1 of the plane on the perpendicular bisector of AB and the 15 units from midpoint of AB. Determine the coordinates of C. Okay, so let's kind of draw a picture, see how this looks. So we have a coordinate plane. So we have a negative 3, 8, so somewhere around here. 5, 2, so somewhere around here, right? So we have A, and this is B. Okay, so C lies on in one of the lies in quadrant one of the same play and is on the perpendicular bisector, right? So here is the midpoint-ish somewhere. I'll just actually draw somewhere like right here-ish. Then we're gonna draw a perpendicular bisector. So it's 90 degrees, right? Because it's perpendicular and it's a bisector, so it bisects. So it's at the middle. And it's 15 units away from the midpoint. So since this has to be quadrant 1, the 15 units had to be this way. So the point has to be somewhere right here. Okay, so what's the midpoint? The midpoint of negative 3, 8, and 5, 2 is just add the respective coordinates and divide by 2. So negative 3 plus 5 is 2, 2 divided by 2 is 1. Okay, 8 plus 2 is 10, 10 divided by 2 is 5. So the midpoint is at 1 comma 5. Okay, so this point is 1 comma 5. And it has to be 15 units away on the top. Okay, so instead of doing math to like find out what that is, I usually use this idea of slope, right? So this is negative 3, 8, and this is 5, 2, right? So to get from 8, right, the y coordinate 8 to y coordinate 2, you have to go down 6. Okay? And to get from negative 3 x coordinate to 5 x coordinate here, you have to go 8 on this side, right? So that means our slope is negative 6 over 8, which is negative 3/4, right? A perpendicular line, inverse and negatives that slope. So inverse of this is negative 4 over 3, and negative of that is 4/3. So the slope of this line is 4/3. So I know that is true. Okay, so let's delete that. So what do I know about 4/3, right? So it has to go 4 and then right? So it has to go 4 up and then 3, and then 4 up and then 3, right? So I know that a triangle is with a 3, 4 as a side length is 5. It's 5, right? So we need to go 15, right? So we need to go 3 times of that. So we make a triangle, another triangle, and one more, right? So to go up that 15, I'm gonna delete that because it's kind of distracting. Okay. So to go up that 15, we gotta have to go up the 4 on the y, on each of these y's, and you have to go 3 on each of the x's. Okay, so we have to add three threes to the x. So 3 times 3 is 9, plus 1 is 10. Okay, and we have to add 3 4's on the y's. So 4 plus 4 plus 4 is 12, plus this 5 is 17. So the coordinate of point C is 10 comma 17. And that's generally how I would do it. Okay, number 15. On the first quiz of a new unit, Terry worked a 8 out of 5 problems correctly. On the second quiz, she was able to work twice as many questions correctly, but earn only half as good a grade, right? So she answered 4 correctly this time. So on the second quiz, she answered twice as much correctly. So she answered 8. Okay, correct. 8 correct. So she did, but earned only half as good as a grade. So on her first grade, she got 4 or 5. So the second time, she got half as much. So then, 1/2 of this is equal to 8 over the total amount of questions, right? So then that is 4 over 10 is equal to 8 over x. So cross multiply, 4 times x is 4x. 8 times 10 is 80. So x is equal to 20. So there's 20 questions. So the answer is 50. So answer for 15 is 20. Okay, number 16. For all value replacements of x, y, this equation is x squared minus 2y over y. Determine the value of 2 and then parentheses negative 4 or 9. Okay, let's do negative 4 and 9 first. So that would be 16. So negative 4 squared is 16. 2 times 9 is negative 18. And then divide by 9, right? So that's negative 2 over 9. Okay, so we need to do a 2, that function, negative 2 9. So x is 2, so that's 4. So x squared is, 2 squared is 4, minus 2 times y, so minus 2 times negative 2 over 9th over negative 2 over 9th. Okay, So on the top, that is 2 times a 2, that's a 4. That's negative, so that's a 4 plus a 4 ninth. So 4 plus a 4 ninth over negative 2 ninths. Okay, so adding those together. So 4 is the same thing as 36 over 9. So that's 40 over 9. And then dividing by a fraction is the same thing as multiplying by a reciprocal. So we're multiplying by negative 9 over 2. So this cancels with this, leaves that negative 1. Divide, that's a 2, 20. So our answer for number 16 is negative 20. Okay. Number 17. All ages are whole numbers of years. 10 years ago, Paul was twice as old as Jerry was then. Okay. So 10 years ago, Paul, oops, 10 years ago, Paul was twice as old as Jerry then. So he was twice as old as Jerry then, right? 10 years ago. And 3 times as old as Mary then. So he was 3 times as old as Mary 10 years ago. Okay. So in 8 years, Mary would be 2/3 as old as Paul. So in 8 years, so Mary plus 8, it would be 2/3 as old as Paul is then. So Paul plus 8 years, right, is then. Determine Jerry's age. So we need to find J. Okay. So since we have M and P on this side, let's just focus on this P minus 10 is equal to that 3 times M. So that's 3M equal minus 30. Okay. So we'll focus on that one, on these two. Okay. So based on that, let's kind of work out this and switch it to the other side so we get all the constants, the same variables on the same side. So 2/3 times P is 2/3 P, and then plus 16 over 3 is equal to M plus 8. Okay, so we know that is true. Just kind of move this up so I get a little bit more room. Okay, so um, let's cancel out M. So multiply this bottom equation by -3. So then this would turn to negative 2p minus 16 is equal to negative 3m minus 24. And add these two equations together. So then that will be negative p minus 26 is equal to negative m. 3m plus m is cancel each other out. So then that negative 24 plus that 30 plus that negative 30 is negative 54, right? So then P is equal to 54 minus 26, which is equal to 28. So Paul's age right now is 28. So let's plug this back into this equation. So 28 minus 10 is 18. So 18 is equal to 2 of Jake, 2 times parentheses Jake minus 10. Right? So 18 divided by 2 is 9. So Jake minus 10 is equal to 9. So Jake is equal to 19 years old right now. So the answer for number 17 is 19. Basically just that. That's all you have to do. Okay. Number 18. Let f of x is equal to x cubed and let g of x is equal to x divided by 2. Determine the value of f of g at -4. So we work inside out. So g at -4. So plug in -4 into g. So -4 divided by 2 is -2. So now we have to find f of -2. So f of -2 is -2 to the power of 3. That is -8. So our answer for number 18 is -8. It is really easy. Okay. I mean 18 is -8. Okay. Number 9. 4 comma 20 and points 4 comma 20 and k comma -8 are points that lie on a line with slope 2. Determine the value of k. So to calculate slope, it's just changing y over changing x. So 20 minus -8 over 4 minus k is equal to 2. So that equals to 28 equal to 2 times that 4 is 8. 2 times that negative k is -2k. So minus that, that's 20 is equal to -2k. So k is equal to -10. So answer for number 19 is -10. That's just basically it's just slope. Okay. Number 20. In the town of Shambana, I don't know how to pronounce it, Illinois, the total population is 120,840 people. Exactly one third of the population has two letters. So if it has two letters, it's one third. Okay. And at least seventh, 15th of the remainder has exactly three letter initials. So of the remaining of the remainder of the population. So we have a pop we have three letters now. So three letters. So if they have a three letter name, the initial, I mean, like the initial of their name, um at least 3/7 of the remainder. So what's remaining is 2/3. So I mean 7/15 of the at least 7/15 of the remaining. So 7/15 of that is equal to 14 over 45. Okay. And then the rest of the population has exactly four letter initials. Okay. So we have four letter initials. So four letters is the rest. So we need to put them in the same population. So this one's at least 14 over 45. Okay. So this one is greater than or equal to 14 over 45, right? Because it said in this question it's at least 7/15. So it's either 7/15, at least 7/15 or greater than that of the 2/3 that's remaining. Okay, so 1/3 is the same thing as saying multiply 15 of top to bottom is 15 over 45. So 15 plus that 14 is 29 over 45. So what you have remaining is a 16 over 45. Okay, so since this is at least, that means the other one's at most, right? Because if this is increasing, then this is decreasing. So what is determine the maximum number of people in Illinois that has the same initial. Okay, so there's 26 alphabets. Okay, let's actually find out what's the total amount is. So that's 120,840. So 120,840 times one third is equal to 40280. And 120,480 times 14 divided by 45. That is about 374, 300, 3,748, 82 and 2/3 ish. And then we have 1 to 120,480. I mean 840. Oops. Times 14 divided by 45. Just to make sure the numbers are correct. Nope, that number was not because I put multiplied by the wrong number. That number is actually 14 over 45 times 128.40 is equal to 37594 and 2/3. Okay, so now we have 124 840 times 16 divided by 45, which is equal to 42965 and 1/3. Okay, so this is the amount of people for each one. So it's at least greater than or equal to this and less than or equal to this, right? So what's the maximum amount of people? What's the maximum amount of combinations with just two letters? That's just 26 times 26. Because in the alphabet there's 26 letters, and since there's two letters, that means there's 26 times 26 amount of combinations. So the maximum is 676. So this one is 26 times 26 times 26 because there's three letters. So that's 175,760. Okay. And the maximum for four letters is equal to 456,976. Okay. So what we're going to do is that we're going to divide each of these numbers by this, right? Because that will be the minimum amount. So 40280 divided by 676, and that is equal to about 59. Okay. And then we have 3, 5, 7. 37594 and 2/3, right? And 2/3 plus 2 divided by 3. And then divide all that by 17576. And you should get about 2. Okay. And now finally the last one, which is 42965 and 1/3 divided by 4,456,976, right? Which is equal to like which doesn't even equal to a have any integers. So this one's like 0, right? So there's no overlap. But think about it. This one has remainders, right? So this at least every single number repeated twice, but there's still some remainders over, right? So at least it's a 2. So if that remainder, that means at least 3 people have the same initial. So same with this, 59. 676, the same initials, repeated 59 times, right? But there's some that are remainders, right? So we have 676 times 59, it's equal to 39,884, which is close to this, but is still over. It's still smaller, right? So 40280 minus that number, right? So there's 396 people remaining, but this just repeated 59 times as an integer. So since there's a decimal, that tells us that there must be at least 60 people, because 59, right, plus an extra one person, because that's the minimum amount, is the amount that is remaining. So that tells us that there's 60 people for 2 letters, 3 people for 3 letters, and 0 people for 4 letters. So that's a total of 60 plus 3 is 63. Okay. So the reason of how you kind of think about this question is, let's say you had 2 letters, right? So let's say you are letter A, and then your letter, this is a really small case to think about, but let's say A, B, A, C, A, D, B, B, right? Let's just say we have these 5 initials as your first name and your last name, right? And let's say you have 5 people, right? uh, the minimum amount of people is that there's actually, let's say there is 11 people, right? And there's what, let's say each tally mark is one person. So then you have something like this, right? So when you have 11 people, the minimum amount of people that the same initials is 3, right? Because there's 3 right here. Even though there's 2 here, the minimum amount is 3, right? So there's at least a 3, right? So you have to put one in every single combination, and then since there's a remaining, that means there must be at least a 3. So there's always 1 plus that, how many groups, right? So there's 5 groups. So in the smaller case of what we've been doing, it's just that 11, right? The amount of people we have, divide by 5, the amount of combinations. That's 11 divided by 5, which is equal to 2, right? But we still have a remainder. So we have that 2 plus the extra 1, right? Is equal to 3. And that's how we got our number, right? That's why when we have a 59, we add a 1 to get a 60. And when we had a 2, we add a 1 to get a 3, right? Because there's that remainder that we have to add in. So the answer for 20 is 63. Okay. So as review, generally 20 is probably going to be, it's not the hardest, but it's tricky to think about. But other than that, a lot of things is basically just definitions like slope, um, like knowing what how to like interpret these questions in case you kind of mess it up, and knowing like perpendicular, bisector, midpoints, like basically the same. 12 is kind of interesting if you kind of learn something from this video, and palindromes are kind of interesting. Other than that, a lot of things are just rewriting equations, which is what algebra really is in competitions. But that's basically it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you at the next math record.